It is nearly time to start redecorating my craft room again, but before we get into fixing the problems, I want to talk about what went wrong. There are a lot of things going on in here right now, and many of them are because it started to slope downhill and I just kind of let it go. But I think there are some root causes to what made it start to go downhill that I want to address when I redo the room. Let's talk about the major problems and a couple of the minor problems, and then we can talk about what I want to do to fix them. The first major problem is here. This should not surprise you. This was one of my New Year's resolutions for last year, was to fix this. I did pull everything out and reorganize it a little, but I didn't fix it. And let's look at why. This is completely unusable. When I first redid this room, I made the decision to kind of use these shelves that I already had. I have like half a bookshelf. I have this old craft organizer with drawers, all these plastic bins that don't really fit the space, and then these leftover wire shelves from reorganizing my yarn stash. And I have all of these crammed in here, and then on top of that, crammed full of stuff down here. Up here, these bins are mostly empty, which makes no sense. And then there's so much stuff crammed in here that I can't get to the drawers or the bins in the back, and I really can't access any of it. So it's a huge mess. It's too difficult to use, and it's an absolute eyesore and honestly a source of anxiety in general. Some of the organizational things that I did that I thought were a great idea, I wasn't totally wrong, but the execution wasn't great. I like how it looks when my fixed knitting needles are organized on these racks on the wall. However, they don't stay. This is too heavy for command hooks to hold up, and I'm a renter, so I'm not going to screw into these plaster walls and make a mess for myself to have to fix later. This won't stay on the wall. It falls down all the time. 90% of the time, it's leaning against my desk like this, because I can't get it to stay on the wall. So I need to think of a better way to hold these up. While we're here, let's talk about this desk that I've never once sat at and used. I don't even have a chair here. I just told myself if I need a chair, I'll roll the chair from my sewing desk over. I don't. It's always covered in junk because I don't use it like a desk. I don't need a desk. I just wanted to keep it in here because I already had it last time when I redid the room. It's not useful. The desk is going to go. While we're on the topic of desks, let's talk about the sewing desk. I have the corner allotted for sewing, and that's what I use it for. But this space isn't very usable because I have stuff on top, but also this shelving unit underneath, which blocks me from being able to move the chair down and use it. I think this needs to be reworked so that this section can be the desk and replace what that desk doesn't do. And then I'll have to come up with something else for the stuff that's here right now. Let's talk about this segment. Of course, I do still have to share the room with my cats. That's not going to change. But this bookshelf is a piece of junk that I already had, again, last time when I redid my room. I wasn't spending a ton of money last time. Not this time either, to be fair. But I didn't buy all new furniture. I took the opportunity to work with what I had to a large extent, and part of that was this bookcase, this desk, the junk in the closet, and now I know which parts really, really don't work. This bookcase is one of the things that really, really doesn't work because it's so cheap. I can't actually put a shelf full of books up here. All the books are on the bottom for a reason, because these shelves will bow and break if I actually fill them up with books. Not to mention, in my opinion, it's ugly. I don't want to have it. A lot of the pictures on this wall, I think, are in chintzy frames, again, that I already had when I did the renovation last time. I don't like the black plastic, black metal frames. Some of them are in pretty wooden frames. I'm going to keep those. I think I'm going to rework art in general. And that goes for this wall as well. I have this whole giant pile. All of these things are bags of yarn or yarn projects or craft related things that belonged to my grandmothers. One grandmother gifted me some of her knitting stuff that she had because she doesn't knit anymore. And then the other one, as you know, recently passed away. And I have so much stuff. These, as well as 3 boxes of knitting pattern books in my dining room that are taking up so much space. I mentioned in my recent Knit Year's Resolutions video that my stash is at capacity, but I didn't really tell you how. So when I initially set up this system, these boxes are like vaguely by weight. The top right corner starts with like lace weight and mohairs, and then it moves into fingering. And then once we get all the way down to the right over here, it's super bulky weight yarns. These bins underneath tend to be scraps or partial skeins, and they're packed. All of these are like pillows, just like stuffed full of yarn. And the yarns that I tend to use more now than I did when I initially did my stash update 2 years ago are like mohair, thin yarns, fingering weight to DK, and I really don't dip into bulky as much as I used to. So this side of the stash almost never moves except to decrease a little, and the other end is packed in really, really way too tight. So I do want to not redo my stash, but redistribute my stash. And I do always have these like baskets on the floor of slight overflow. And I think you saw there's more on my desk of overflow too. So I don't know, it's gonna take some reassessing. So as you know, because I mentioned in my Knit Year's Resolutions video, and if you didn't see that video, you're probably not subscribed, so you should subscribe because this video is the boring part. Who wants to talk about what's wrong with their craft room? You're gonna wanna come back and see what's right after I completely redo this room. What I talked about in that video that you probably already know is that I don't plan on changing my aesthetic at all. What I have dubbed maximalist plant grandma is definitely sticking around. I love this aesthetic. I love displaying yarn and thread and embroidery floss and pretty fabric and all of the colors and having a lot of plants around too. But I do need to reorganize and redistribute and kind of class up some stuff. This might be a view that you're kind of familiar with, but you'd see a much more cropped version of it on my podcast. And here's why. Annie's kind of demonstrating for us over here that this is the highway to the litter boxes. I have to pause my podcast constantly because my cats are walking in and out of the litter boxes and scratching litter and making yucky sand noises that we don't want to hear. And I'm carefully trying to crop my podcast so that you don't see that, but it's a pain to do. Not something I thought of when I was setting up my podcast corner here. And while we're on the topic, this wasn't a good spot for it anyway. My redoing my craft room video was literally the first YouTube video I ever made. I knew I wanted to redo my craft room. I knew I wanted to start a YouTube channel, and I just decided to take the opportunity to jump headfirst into both at the same time. I'm glad I did. I learned a lot from it, but that means that when I was setting up my craft room, I didn't have the experience of already having made YouTube videos when I decided to put this here. I knew from watching other people's videos and just general knowledge that natural light is needed in filming something like this. So I put my podcasting seat section across from the windows, which turns out to be really not great. It's direct light. It's not very diffused. It makes it difficult to film at certain times of day. And it also makes it so that I can't wear my glasses when I'm recording podcasts because they reflect the light that's directly across from me. It's not good. If I had known all this in the first place 2 years ago when I initially redid this room, I would have put the podcast corner over here, which I think is what I plan to do when we redo all of this. I was gonna change scenery again, but I can't move a cat on my lap. Don't be nuts. So let's talk about some of the fixes that I think are actually gonna fix this stuff. First of all, pretty straightforward. I'm getting rid of that desk. I'm getting rid of that bookcase. I'm getting rid of a lot of the organizers in the closet that are blocking other organizers and making things difficult for me. Once I get rid of that desk, I'm going to move this chair in my little podcast corner over there so it's got the natural light from the side so it doesn't have the litter box bathroom behind me, and it'll make it easier to frame and set up. I can actually take care to set up an aesthetic background this time, which I kind of try to do here, but again, I didn't have enough experience to know how I was going to be framing the shots and what I wanted it to look like. I'm going to be replacing a lot of the frames that I think aren't nice enough. I mean, a lot of them I think I would keep, but a lot of them I think look chintzy and don't work with the art or whatever is inside of them. So I'm going to be redoing my entire gallery wall here. That entire gallery wall, as well as this one and that one, because that's going to be the backdrop for my podcast. So it's something that I don't really have a plan for yet, but I'm going to work through it as I do it. I have to find somewhere else to hang my knitting needle things. I don't know if I'm going to continue to use those wire grid things or if I'm just going to use the same clips on a different surface. I'm not sure yet, but again, we've isolated what's not working today and we're going to work our way to what works. Taking all that stuff off the desk, finding a new place for that so I can use that leg of my sewing desk as a desk. And then, of course, pulling everything out of that closet and reorganizing it in a way that's actually accessible inside the closet. That way, once I have that, and I have purchased a couple pieces of furniture secondhand that are going to replace my bookcase and add a lot of storage and a beautiful focal piece right where I'm sitting right now. I'm not going to show you those today because this is what's wrong with my room, not about to be what's right with it. Once I have that added storage, I've fixed the closet situation and shuffled everything around, I will be able to kind of expand my yarn stash into a comfortable space. I will be able to sort through all of these items from both of my grandmothers that I've been avoiding sorting through for a long time and integrate them into the rest of my collection. And then I will also be able to fix everything, like everything. It's a reorganizing, rearranging thing, right? So once I've emptied out all of the storage, once I've upgraded the furniture to new, better storage solutions, then I think the rest of it will find a way to fall into place. It's time. I'm going to get started on the craft room today. I'm overwhelmed. It's a lot. I won't lie. Oops. So while I'm most excited to, be finished and have my beautiful, finished, happy, aesthetic craft room, my biggest motivation at the moment is to get everything to a state where I can bring the new furniture in here. I bought a couple pieces of new furniture to replace the stuff I'm getting rid of, and it's just been in our living areas downstairs, which is in the way and annoying. So let me tell you what I got. I bought a bookcase at an estate sale. It's solid wood. It looks not like it's not like some heirloom professional piece. It's actually a little bit rustic. I think by my assessment, it looks like it's made out of like stock lumber and stock like millwork trim, but it's pretty. I think they did a good job. It's much nicer than like a flat pack, boring bookcase that I could buy online for the same price. I paid $75 for the bookcase at the estate sale. And while I was there, I inquired and I picked up some sewing stuff too. So I got a little sewing box treasure chest and a thing full of thread and a thing full of buttons. So, I'm happy about that because I care very much about collecting thread and buttons for some reason, even though I use them so seldom. So I got that bookcase, which is nice. I like that there's trim on all of the shelves. It's definitely a lot sturdier than the one I have now. I'm not sure if it'll end up in the exact same place. I think I have to get up the other piece and see how that fits because that one's much bigger, but I am so excited about this piece. This hutch that I found on Facebook Marketplace absolutely embodies the maximalist plant grandma vibes. I am so thrilled that I found it. And the person that sold it to me was really great and worked with us a lot because we showed up with our SUV and realized that the top half of the hutch would absolutely not fit in our car. So we paid him for it and we took the dresser, which is the bottom half, with us that day. And then we had to borrow a pickup truck and go back and get the other half another day. But he was really sweet and gracious about it and let us do that. And he gave me a great price on it. And I really, really love it. And it's exactly what I wanted. It's maybe too big for the space, but it has everything that I wanted for the space. So I was like, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make the whole room work around this piece because this is what I needed. When I was looking online for something to fill this space, I wanted something white or off-white because I've already got a lot of wood tones going on in here and I didn't want to contrast with that, but I don't want to go like black or gray. Those are too boring for my craft room. I like the white vibes. And I wanted something that had storage for sure. Hopefully storage on the bottom for things that I need to access less often. And then some sort of like pretty display area on top, like open shelves or glass cabinets or something like that. You know, I was looking at like IKEA and Wayfair and places that sell new furniture. And there's a lot out there that's gorgeous, but it's like more than I want to spend for this. There was so many options when I was antiquing and going to thrift stores and looking on Facebook Marketplace. But I just, in my head, just had this idea of this beautiful white cabinet that I could hide stuff in storage on the bottom, but have some pretty display shelves on top. And this is what this hutch is. It is an off-white set. It's kind of a yellowy off-white, but I think it works in this room really well. It's got a dresser base, like a full-size dresser. I think it's like 18 inches deep, which is a lot, but I love it. So I can fill up the bottom with storage, all sorts of drawers and cabinets and things that I can put overflow craft supplies and yarn in. And then the top is so pretty. Open shelving in the middle and glass cabinet doors on either side. So it's like the best of all worlds. It's everything I had hoped for. I got a great deal on it. I'm just so pleased that I found it. And it's going to look so good. So it's a little bit oversized for the space, but my idea is to put that kind of against the wall where my podcast area used to be. It still is today, but I'm going to move that to the area behind me. And then once we have that in, we're going to kind of see how the rest of the furniture fits around it. Anyway, none of that matters yet because there's absolutely nowhere to put that furniture right now. So my first steps are going to be to pull out the things that I need out of the way to get the new furniture in. I'm thinking I'm not going to touch the closet yet, although I plan on overhauling the closet. And I'm not going to touch this area, which is in front of me right now on my sewing desk and under my sewing desk, because that's not going to impact my ability to get the new furniture in. What I'm going to focus on today is clearing off the desk and bookcase and this whole area, because once I have that clear, then tomorrow when Josh is home, we can get the old furniture out and try to bring the new furniture up. And then once those are in place, I can start reorganizing. So for today, it's going to be a pretty boring day of clearing this stuff out somewhere. I don't know where it's going to go yet, just to get it out of the way. And then tomorrow we can pull the furniture in and start envisioning the new. Wow, look, I've accomplished so much. This room is so empty and clean, and I cleaned it all out in one day. Not. I did say maximalist, didn't I? I don't think I misrepresented this at all. Look how floofy. So yeah, this is a horrible mess. But the idea was to clean out this side for the new furniture, which is complete. So tomorrow, Josh and I will remove these two pieces of furniture, which are gone. And then this spot is for my new gorgeous hutch. And the bookcase will go against that wall somewhere, maybe behind where my chair is for podcasts, or maybe in the corner where that one is. But it kind of depends on how much space the hutch takes up and what we have to work with. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm so happy. It's so perfect. And the bookcase. Oh, I'm very excited to get started, but also I think I need to take a break. What about you, Anne? Did you do any heavy lifting? Didn't think so. Okay, so I have made some progress, but there's still a ton to do. After we took our break, I fiddled around and pushed these furniture pieces around a little bit to try to decide where to put them permanently. I think this is going to be near where they end up. And then we ordered lunch because we were so tired from moving furniture. And then we had a whole debacle with lunch. So now I'm exhausted from that. So I think I'm going to wrap this one up here because this is an awful lot to think about today. Now that I'm looking at it in the position that it's in, I wasn't sure how these two pieces would fit in relation to each other, and it does seem tight, which I knew it would be. I thought maybe I would use this bookcase kind of over here as a background for my podcast space, but that means my podcast chair has to be moved basically into the middle of the room, and I don't know that I love that. So I think this is as close as we're going to get, which means I have a lot less space in the corner than I thought I would. My dress form doesn't really fit back in here. I mean, nothing fits in here right now. I don't want to look over there, but I have to find somewhere to put the cat food dishes and the dress form. So I'm thinking when I'm taking the old organizational pieces out of the closet, getting rid of them, reorganizing things, moving things around, I was planning on reorganizing the end of the desk anyway, where I've got those two large cube organizers. Well, I should say one large one and one small one. I had already planned on taking the small one and putting it in the closet. I might come up with something else for the large one. I thought I was going to leave it out where it is, but I'm starting to think reclaiming that space would be nice. So I've got thoughts, I've got things I've got to work through, but I've got to get farther along before I can actually work through them. So my next steps, I think, because I can't even begin to clean the closet out until I sort through these books over here. And I have 3 boxes of books from my grandmother's knitting collection downstairs. It might be her whole collection. And those are going to go in the bookcase. So I think when we meet back here for the next installment, my first order of business is going to be to start filling in the bookcase and maybe parts of the hutch with books, make it aesthetic as I can, hopefully organize them in a way that I can wrap my head around, and decide which books are going to stay out and which ones might get put into storage, because I know that there are a lot that I might not use as much, a lot of vintage baby patterns and stuff. And then once that's out of the way, hopefully I can start getting into the closet, pulling all of that stuff out, finding spaces for that, and then really digging into the rest of it. And then maybe this entire disaster zone will start to dissipate and become a beautiful room. And then, of course, another big part of it is going to be to reestablish my gallery wall on this side, as well as taking down the gallery wall behind the camera that I'm looking at right now and redoing that. And then we'll go from there. So thanks for sticking around to this one. I hope you're excited to come back for the next one and see what the next installment has in store, because there is going to be so much to get done. But I'm glad you stayed for this one. Either way, if you haven't subscribed, make sure to do so that you get notified when the next chapter is uploaded. And I'll see you back here then. Bye. The next step is to make more mess. There's a handwritten crochet pattern in here. Oh, I made it really far without crying, didn't I, guys?